Hey everybody, welcome back to the Spin Rack. It's me with my boy Petey, and we are doing the teaser of Jupiter's Legacy. This is a Mike Millar comic, and it's coming over to Netflix, and they're teasing it. It could be big. It could
Mark,
be.
Mark Miller.
Didn't I just say that?
You said Mike.
Sorry, Mark Millar. My apologies, guys. So going forward, is this going to be the next big hit on Netflix? You know, along with the Umbrella Academy for superheroes. Let's take a look and see what's happening.
Okay.
One day you're going to be stronger than anyone else in the world. Every evil you can imagine is going to rise up against mankind. Not for justice, for vengeance. You're going to be the future.
What's here, Netflix?
Nothing.
Not a thing. But
They,
hey,
we got to look at this other thing then. If that's the case, we got to look at this other thing now. You ready?
yeah, I'm ready.
I'm going to go full screen. You still see it?
I still see it.
I'm going to play this other thing.
You got it. Now we get a little bit better. Now we see some pics. Okay, I think there's potential there, my friend. There is potential, potential, potential. I
You're
mean,
being generous.
I'm always being generous, but you know,
This
because I
looks
have a
like
private
that
eye.
other show. What's the other show? The Boys.
Yeah, it does have a boys look.
Thank you.
Some people are comparing the boys between the power utopian who's super powerful compared to what's the name of the guy? Can't remember on the boys. Top guy, not Supreme, but
Homelander.
Homelander. Yeah, you know. So it's interesting. Um, so this is more like the comic is basically more like the leaders the parents got their powers a long time ago, and now they're these legacy figures, these guys who did a great job as superheroes and stuff like that. Now their kids are following after them, you know, Troopers
They're
Legacy.
cool kids. They're cool
Cool,
kids.
but they have the power, and how can they live up to what their parents have done? You know, can they do the same thing? Can they be the guardians of society that their parents were? You know, and of course, as you see the comic book things start to come out, it's interesting. I think this was what by Image Comics. What you call Image? You said what did you call Image before at one point? You said Image is the is the Hollywood. You know, they script Image. Those writers in
Yeah,
Image, and they do this. They're storyboarding for Hollywood or something like
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
right?
But I don't know if that was mine, but yeah, it's definitely that's the case there. Basically well no, Miller's more of an established property. So when he went creator owned, he was doing his mock versions of other heroes and he released them as creator, all his pastiches of other characters. So you had a superhero, a Superman. They had multiple Superman, like a Joker, Batman composite. You have So yeah, I mean, some of the other things, he has the Star Wars type of thing. He has a bunch of these sort of things where he takes stuff and genre stuff that we've seen before and does a slightly different version of it because he did the Authority and was very successful. It's sort of the tradition of what Alan Moore used to do. He's just making a ton of money off of it. And ultimately, I think as far as a writer, at least there's a little more backstory to, even though it's very cynical as far as his writing. I mean, I think this is a more, sorry, I want to say more worthwhile property. I just wasn't with them doing Brigade and the Rob Liefeld stuff. So, this looks like they have a little more weight to them than Brigade. I didn't really think there was anything to Brigade for them to do. So thankfully that kind of ended, and we'll see what we get.
What was the problem with them doing Liefeld stuff? It's a superhero. Brigade would have been perfectly fine. It would have worked out there too.
Because those are shoulder padded heroes, guns and pouches. There's not a human moment in the story at all. Not to say that there's human moments in a lot of Mark Millar stuff, but Kick-Ass had some sort of thing in there, even though it was kind of I'm saying it's the worst idea that you can imagine, because everybody does that sort of story that Kick-Ass was. That everyone comes up with a realistic superhero with the suit and some things. And I mean, I'm saying I did the same thing, and I came through the same arc. You create a character, you the human character is like a Batman character with these gadgets. He goes out, he fights crime. What happens? Next thing you know, he winds up in the hospital. We all do the same plot because we think it's ridiculous, right? So he's like, well, what would happen? He would wind up in the hospital. Then after the hospital, what was mine was that there was this guy who had cancer, so he used all of his money to get this suit, and he does this. You want to hear it? It's really I turn it into a total comedy. You want me to go for it?
Go for it.
Nobody watches the show. We'll never be that big yet. And this is what I'm going to lay my hat on. I came up with, after a long time of coming up with characters, I decided I should do a spoof. And I came up with Bungee Men, right? So you have a bungee cord, and you'd have these two big, like, they'd be sort of like the foam things you're in what's those things? We're in a like a session where you beat on with these Batagan things. He'd have those on his fist. So like when you see crime, he just slammed down and he knocked the people out. So if someone was robbing someone, Bungee Man would come, slam down, go out and disappear immediately. And the person would be like, thanks, Bungee Man. So then I came up with some villains for him. So you had one villain, which was Lady Guillotine. Taking off of the flying guillotine, a woman would have this thing where she would basically be like Elektra. So I'm swooping Elektra, where she would try to kill Bungee Man with this, but she's like a kosher killer. She would have to kill you the first time. If she didn't, she'd have to move on. It would be like the honor is broken, but she had a success rate that was so beyond. Then the third story, there was a hostage. And this is the penultimate story leading to the rest of the book. The hostage would be in a building. So Bungee Man's plan was crash through the building, stop the people. He does it. He crashes through the building. His things hit the guys. He comes out of the building. The next shot is just him hanging and unconscious because he went through the wall. He went through the ceiling. He went through a bunch of ceilings. And then next thing you know, the next comic strip, because it's basically a comic strip, he wakes up in the hospital and he's like, oh my God, I've been found out. They've taken off my costume, this, that, and the other. They know the truth. And then next thing you know, he's like, what? He said, you just had some superficial injuries, you had a concussion, this, that, and the other. He's like, what about my cancer? I said, what do you mean you don't have cancer? It's like, yes, I do. This is why I did all of this. It's like, no, you're not. He got misdiagnosed by a what's the name? So it was by a croc, and that becomes one of the villains that he fights against. And I think the next story I had, he was fighting a guy who's like a bowler, but he has this inertia ball. So the inertia thing, he could throw it and it would go forever. It wouldn't stop. So it'd be like Thor's hammer. So the guy would throw it and destroy all this stuff, and then somehow it would come back. I didn't figure out how the inertia ball would come back, but ultimately Bungee Man catches the inertia ball, but he goes with it and he flies like miles out. But then of course, Bungee Man has a cord, so it brings him all the way up and brings him all the way back down, smashing, and the inertia guy gets knocked out. So that's as far as I got. But see, it's from the same arc that Kick-Ass had. There's no difference. So it's one of the things we do as fans. we come up with these mock characters, and I went the other way of saying, all right, because I came up with a realistic character who had a body armor, but then they shoot him up and he winds up in the hospital. So I was like, no, this is a little too ridiculous. So I turned it into a comedy. So, see,
Like it.
but you cracked up, you laughed.
I did.
It
Now,
worked.
we like the Jupiter's Legacy. And we definitely like PD's idea of Bungee Man. We need to flesh that out. If you like what you saw, give us a comment, thumbs up. Spin a rack.
Out.